Jay, how's it going, man?
Hey, Eric, it's awesome to see you. What's going on?
Hey, I've been meaning to tell you some thoughts I've been having here.
Oh,
I think we need to change the name of the show.
why?
Come on, man. Do you have any guesses?
You guys crossed your file line.
We finally made it, man.
Nice. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. When you introduced me to the fire movement in 2019, I think, and we really kind of got on the path in 2020. So it's been for kind of long years. I'm gonna be honest, but we finally crossed the threshold. And actually, no, we're not going to change the show, but I do have to change like some of the intros, and because I think the intro basically says he reached FI in 2020.
Right. You're trying to play catch up.
I'm playing catch up. So
I guess you caught up, man. And I have a guess that you probably passed me, but hey, your business is doing awesome.
Who's counting, man?
Hey, man, the comparison game, it's always there, even if it's not on the surface.
Oh, it's true. It's true. Yeah.
Well, congratulations. That's huge news. I don't want to make light of it. You and Laura have to be just so excited about it.
Oh, we are, man. Yeah. And I think she used the term unburdened when she talked about giving her notice to her job. And there's many things we'll probably get into, but that is one of the emotions that I feel. And it's also, I've been building up to it for so long and thinking about it for so long that it's an emotion that I want everyone to have because it feels so good. I don't know if you felt this way too, or if it just kept kind of creeping the number up further and further, because there's a part of my brain that's like, oh, I should keep going. And I do want to talk about that with you. But,
oh, yeah.
But the emotions that I feel inside are just like extreme satisfaction, and that I want everyone to feel this same way because it's the result of a lot of planning and a lot of hard work.
Yeah, 100%. That unburdened is a really good term. Whatever tracking mechanism you use, or I know for me, like just as soon as it ticked over, I was like, all right. I mean, it might drop down tomorrow, but I have crossed that line.
Yes, exactly.
Is it too soon to ask about the last couple days of the market? I mean, it's come back a bit. So as we record this on the 6th, I think it is. So I don't know. Well, we could talk about that as well, how that feels, because a line is a line, and even if you have buffers on it, I'm sure that. There's feelings that go along with now when you see market gyrations.
Totally. Yeah. But I think my head is in a much different place than it used to be. And we crossed it actually a while ago. Obviously, I didn't want to share it too prematurely with you. But yeah, of course, market gyrations are going to change. And the number could fluctuate quite a bit on a day like yesterday when the market tumbled a bit. But I'm in such a different place than I was even a few years ago when I was just watching the market slide and just buying the dip the whole time. It just feels like a better place.
That's great. Well, I'm super, super thrilled for you. And I'm excited to have you in speaking from a different perspective as we start to talk about some of this. And I'm wondering what will be different, what will be the same, and what I'm going to learn from you in this new mindset, as I hope you have the other way around. I guess one thing, maybe this is an okay place to start. You tell me, how did you know when you were done moving the goalposts? Because I get a sense from some of our previous conversation that there has been some adjusting as you go for a variety of reasons, and you can, how you want to talk about that's up to you. But when did you finally say, and here's the line, this is what it is, and I'm sticking to it?
Well, who says I've done that?
Oh, all right. Now we're talking.
I mean, look, Laura has been a huge influence on me in this respect because when she gave her notice, I saw a really big change in her. Really changed the way she approached day-to-day life, and her focus and priorities have completely shifted away from the all-consuming job to health, wellness, what our future life looks like together. This is a big life change, obviously.
Yeah, it's huge.
And she was hesitant to really explore what life might look like beyond working because work consumed such a big place in her life. She really helped me kind of come to terms with this idea that there is uncertainty in this number. Like, we've done a lot of calculations, and I want to get to this idea that I think like fire, no matter what flavor of fire we're talking about here. I think it's like 60% a number and like 40% mindset, and you get through the number stuff at a certain level, you come to terms with what the numbers are. But then the mindset stuff, which I thought I had an okay handle on, she helped me kind of come to terms with this idea that like we've mapped out a series of assumptions. We've made some conservative assumptions. We have padding and buffers in there. And at a certain point, I had this realization that this is no different than when I started my business. I didn't have like all the lights weren't green when I started that. Like it just had to be the next couple of lights. Like I can see, to the end of my headlights and I'm going to move there and then I'll make another set of decisions. And, of course, this requires like more planning than that. But I couldn't have predicted how the past 11 years in the business have gone. Totally. But I just made decisions based on the best information that I had at the time. And, you have been walking me through and, doing a lot of hand holding here with respect to numbers. And I think at a certain point we got comfortable with what the numbers were and what healthcare was and everything. But I'm okay operating my business with a lot of uncertainty. And that's an okay space for me to be in. So why wouldn't this, like, why do I have to know what all of my future expenses are 10 years from now? I mean, I'm never going to get that right.
You're not. You're not. But given the amount of work you've put into it, that I know you've put into it, it's not like you're going to be off by 50%.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And you may find yourself like I absolutely am, full disclosure right now, trying to juice the returns 4 years after, leaving my job because there's some optional things we would like that it's like, oh, we didn't account for those. And that's okay.
Okay.
But, maybe we can, it's a form of moving the goalposts, right? So my point is it's still possible as you learn things in either direction. None of that's wrong. To your point, if you're measured and you've got your eyes open and you're aligned with your partner, you're going to make good decisions, even in the absence of complete information. I have this thought that you've done a better job. Now, whether it's because of this focus we've had on these discussions and that's led you guys to better conversations than maybe Lori and I had 4+ years ago now, doesn't really matter. We are comfortable. We're happy. Everything, is firing on all cylinders. We've weathered some uncertainty in the market. And I feel really good about the course we have ourselves on now more than 4 years later. But it doesn't mean that, second guessing or wondering is going to continue to happen for you just like it happens for us. Yeah. But I just have this sense that you've got a little more cushion in there after, really carefully considering this for a few years. And I think that's a great thing.
Well, I think one thing that, some people may criticize me for is I'm continuing to operate the business. So Laura, just to kind of paint the picture, if you haven't followed us for the past 4 years on this show, I'm 50, my wife is 51. We have 2 boys, both going to be in college in the next few weeks. So we're going to be empty nesters here. We were introduced to the FIRE movement about 5 years ago. We were 45 at the time. And so we were, sort of late career, I guess you could say, and especially with respect to now that we're both going to be retiring. But Laura's going to be basically leaving her job in December. End of December will be her last day. And she's going to join me to help me run 30 by 40, which is my business. It's an architecture business that's also an online course company and content creation. Basically, the idea is we're going to spend a small amount of our life post reaching FI, post RE for Laura, running that business. And so I think some people may criticize me for saying, well, it's okay. You have built-in padding because you have passive income coming from a business. And so, to that, I would just say everybody's RE can look different. Because
100%.
Yeah. And I know you do, and Lori both do some part-time work. And now it sounds like you're having some other sort of side hustles that are continuing to throw off income. And I think that's just a natural part of kind of where we all are in life now. I don't want to be dedicating all the time that I have to a singular job, and
that's right.
I want to spend a lot more time doing the things that I haven't done for the past 11 years. And I don't want to be tethered to a set of duties. And
That's right.
Yeah. I don't know if that's cheating or not.
No, no, it's not cheating, and we're not going to have another episode about the intermittent retirement police.
Yeah.
I'll link that one in the show notes for sure, though. But I think, first and foremost, you and I have agreed for several years now that the very definition of financial independence is the freedom to choose how you do and don't spend your time. And that answer can and almost assuredly will change as you go along. And so what we're talking about today is you and Laura have crossed that threshold of financial independence. So you've bought the right to choose. Now, if that means you're doing some form of work for income, passive or active, so be it. That's your choice. And if you cut that back or you do it more remotely, as which is where we left the thread last on Two Sides of Fi, that's fine too. Lori and I, as you said, do something one day a week, but as we start to travel more, that's going to go away.
Yeah.
And if I want to do other things like, writing options, contracts, for example, for income, and I enjoy it, well, that's a hobby / good source of income. So, people can and will judge that, but we all get to choose, right? So
we didn't build the plan on needing that like you did.
Yes, that's the distinction.
Yeah,
that's the distinction.
Right. The one thing that's different about our situation, and a lot of early retirees face this, is covering health insurance in retirement. And the way the business is set up right now, we wouldn't qualify for subsidies. So it makes sense to keep the business operational and have us both be working for it. We're going to have a ICHRA that's set up that we're going to use to fund our health insurance. And at 50, we're both going to be 51 when we retire, and so we do have a bridge to get to our Medicare insurance, right?
Yeah.
So it's
okay.
That's
I'm not familiar
cost.
with that. What is an ICHRA? I know this isn't a healthcare episode, but just to understand what you might be doing.
At a high level, the ICHRA is a way for us to structure a compliant healthcare plan that the business basically pays for.
Okay.
So I'm going to compensate Laura using health insurance, and we're going to cover our whole family. So it's a way of shifting the expense to the business, and so that will reduce some of our taxable income from there. So it's something that we're working with a broker. So there's a lot of compliance issues. Basically, shopping around, that seemed to be the most tax advantaged way to accomplish that.
Cool. For me, it's just another example of how there's not one flavor of what happens after you stop. What got you to financial independence? Where
Totally.
Healthcare is still a must, and so there's a lot of ways to get there. And we've talked a lot about the ACA, and that may well be something that makes sense for you later. But for the time being, you've got a different plan.
That's right. Yeah. But it's definitely, it's something that is still in process too. It's something that, if we weren't running the business, it would actually be more straightforward. And you already know that buying healthcare on the ACA marketplace, not exactly the most straightforward thing to begin with. So the thing is, you just don't know, from a business perspective, what the business is going to throw off from year to year. So this is going to be kind of a transition period for us. And like you said, the more we travel, and we've been doing a lot of travel this summer, the less interested I am in doing work on the side. I have to be honest.
I love hearing that.
It really crystallizes things, because it opens your eyes to just this life you've been not living for a while. And I hate saying that, but man, I've been so heads down saving and working. We both have. And you have to do that in some respects to get here. But wow, now that we've been awakened to some of the kind of hedonism period, as Laura referred to it, it's like, ooh.
Well, you texted me something a little while back, and I was looking at my texts today, and I happened to see it again, about taking a fishing trip up north and really unplugging for the first time ever. I don't know, and how that felt. Why don't you remind me what that was about?
Yeah, this was a good kind of crystallizing event, and I should have brought it up when you asked me earlier. But so Laura booked this cabin in northern Maine and basically told the boys, because they both work in the summer to save money for college and everything. And she basically said, look, we're going to take this 4 or 5 days, whatever it was, and I want everybody there, and we're just going to unplug and hang out. And so get to this house, beautiful cabin, beautiful lake. We rented a couple of boats, got all the fishing gear out, and we all piled in boats. And There's no cell service up there. So it's impossible to be like, my whole life, even when I'm on vacation, is in my phone checking business stuff. Like there's a part of my day that is doing that. And so the kind of, forced scarcity of not having any connection to the internet really allowed me to kind of reset, and just sitting in the boat with my boys and my wife. And there was a point when the boys were kind of off. There's this huge tower that somebody had built on the side of the lake and this huge rope swing, and Laura and I were just off fishing and watching the boys kind of swing on this rope swing. And I think Laura made the comment like, we're basically watching the sunset of our kids' childhood, and it just really crystallized this thought in me that there are all these moments that you're potentially missing if you have your head just locked in a phone and accumulating more for the sake of accumulating more things so you can buy more things, maybe do different things. And I think it was just a reminder that life in retirement doesn't have to be expensive. That was not an expensive trip for us, but it was a time where we could reconnect, and I got to check in with a hobby that, you and I went fishing every day for many, many summers together, right? That was our shared hobby, among a few other things. But I just have such fond memories of that. And I didn't check in with that for years. Like, that was just not something I did because I didn't feel like I had the time or space to do it. And I think everyone has those opportunities available to them. Even people on the path, people who are in the messy middle. Like, that's one of those things we've talked about in the past where it doesn't have to take a lot of money to kind of check out and do something that you really enjoy and check back in with a hobby that maybe you've neglected for a while.
Yeah, it's the story you just told really illustrates that point. And I know there's people who are already fired who are nodding along, and they'll say, I'm in that case lean fire, but what they have bought and what they're enjoying is just the time to spend with their children, because maybe they had a career like many where it was just long days, or they were always having to respond to things after hours, etc. And now they're not. And so maybe they didn't, their annual income they're going to generate and spend isn't as much as some people's, maybe not as much as you or I. And of course, there are people who are way, way more than you and I are generating, but their happiness is the same or more. Because they've bought the time back to do all those things. So it's really cool that you had that experience, I assume, so early, around the time or just after you've crossed this kind of invisible line in the sand. And what a nice time, what a nice opportunity to spend that with your family.
Yeah, it's pretty great, man. And it makes me wish that I didn't go so hard the past couple of years. And that's kind of a weird space to be in, right? Because if I hadn't done that, I don't know if we'd be here today. And
that's right.
But by the same measure, you don't know what you're missing sometimes.
You don't. And I think we have to, maybe it's just a part of my own kind of, mental wellness journey. But we have to learn from all the things in our past,
for sure, and
just apply them going forward. Right.
For sure.
And that's not just some new age, mystical kind of thing. I earnestly believe that, right? Where everything we learn carries us into our next experiences and thoughts. And so you had a formative one. That's really cool. I'm sure you're not going to forget that anytime soon. And I suspect your two boys and Laura, your wife, won't either.
Yeah. And I think it's funny because, I saw this quote, someone was just talking about their decision to, retire early. And they basically were saying, I found I was trading time that I don't have for money that I didn't need.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's a
really
great quote.
Yeah. You get into this space, and this was me on that boat, like time just stretches. It's not like, I don't know how many vacations you spent like this, but I've spent a lot of vacations going, oh my God, do I got to rush from this thing to that thing to that? And the next thing you know, it's just over. You just blinked and it's over. And you forgot to play games with the kids and, the 16,000 things that would have stretched that time, but you're so occupied on that kind of like, okay, next thing. And the next thing for me for so long has been work. What's the next work obligation? What's the next meeting I have? What's the next promo I'm doing? And man, to kind of free yourself from that is just, you don't realize actually how much space it's consuming until you get some time away from it,
100%. Well, now that you've crossed this line, Laura has an end in sight. how is it changing how you're approaching what you're doing now for your work for 30 by 40? And what do you foresee happening after December? How are things changing, and how are they going to continue to change?
So I've set up some automations. I'm really trying to put things in place so that there's a system that we can plug into that's very time bound. Because
Okay.
I don't want this to stretch into, a 10-hour a week commitment becomes a 30-hour a week commitment just because I let it. So that's what I'm doing. But I'm also finding, Jay, that things that I thought were important maybe a year ago don't feel that important to me anymore.
Oh, I'm interested in that.
Yeah. Well,
Example.
Making videos every month felt really, really important for many, many years. And I can see when I don't make videos on my YouTube channel for my business, things change, and you have to do different things. And I have done different things and compensated in different ways, like, paying for ads or doing different things to load the top of funnel. But at a certain point, not having that new content in the pipeline there makes a real difference in the business. And so,
Sure.
But what I found is just, I'm not getting the same juice out of it that I used to get, and I can really see, I think it's really curious that you've continued to stick with me and make videos for the past couple of years, because you must have been in that headspace many, many times. Like, do I have to really sit down at this desk and do this? Right?
Sure. It's
What's
happened.
important?
And and I would say on my end, in full honesty, it's less about not looking forward to the conversations.
Yeah.
And sometimes like, it is doing the background work, really. How do I fit that into my schedule in a way that it doesn't feel like work? And that's why sometimes it has stretched. You've commented on this, and you're right. Like, it could be Saturday and I'm still not done getting ready. And we launch these typically Sunday morning, 8 a.m. Pacific. So I need to get done. And I've actually done better on the last few episodes.
Yeah.
But there have definitely been times where I was like, man, this is like work. I'm like sitting here on a trip with my family thinking about how I have to edit this when I get back tonight and it's Saturday night. So, yeah. I think it's the yin and yang for me is I look forward to the conversations and the engagement and the satisfaction I get from that and from the interaction with our community much more than I don't look forward to any of the background work. That's and so far that's been uniformly the case. And if it wasn't, we would probably have a conversation.
Yeah. And it's like that. It's just, I see it happen with Laura. She's like, she had a bunch of different milestones that she wants to get reach before she leaves the job. And, as the summer drags on, she gave pretty long notice. So she's got a few more months left to work. But as it gets closer, she's like, how important is that? How important is that? It starts to, your perspective really starts to shift. And I feel like there's a switch that's been flipped in a way. And it's helped to go and, Laura and I just went to see Metallica over the weekend. It was this kind of 2-day show separated by a couple of days. And that was like a weekend of hedonism. That was amazing. It was so great.
Did you get some VIP passes?
No, I did not. No. But no, just the act of doing something that was a luxury spend for us.
It's a luxury.
Yeah. And it was great. Just amazing. And before that, we took, another trip down south and just went to a bunch of different bars and restaurants and just like stuff like we're dating again. All this stuff is like, well, that feels a lot more important than, pushing the number up incrementally. And
yes, it is.
I don't know if you felt this way at a certain point too, but when the portfolio starts to make, large movements and they're larger than the impacts that you can make by saving more, you really got to start to ask yourself, like, what am I doing with my time?
Exactly. Yeah. No, it's so good that you've come to these realizations because they're super important. And I see, and I'm sure you see in some of the comments we get or on Discord, I think not everybody who is fired has gotten there yet.
Yeah.
Sure. And so you're like, ooh, I don't know. So I'm sure they get there at some point. I really earnestly believe that. But yeah, it matters a lot. And you really do start to think about when is something you said to me numerous times, especially in the first 2 years of the show, when is enough enough, and are you really going to squeeze that for this? And, none of us know the time we get, so you crossed the line. Okay, cool. How many years do you have now that you're over the line? I don't know.
Yeah.
Guess we better get the enjoyment out of it that we hope to.
Totally.
And have a good time.
I don't know if you had experienced this, but what I'm finding right now is, okay, got the plan, know what the spend is, you know what the burn rate is, and projecting expenses forward. But there's still a part of me that returns to worrying, and I won't say it's like 25% of the time, but there'll be, like, Laura and I were having a conversation on the way back from this concert, and it got to a place where I was like starting to second guess myself. Mm-hmm. I was second guessing the number. Like, did I account for enough on this? Are we going to want to do more here? Are we going to want to travel this way? And for me right now, that comes back to travel. It sounds like you're kind of in a place like that a little bit right now. I mean, you're mixing a hobby of options trading with wanting maybe a little extra cash. So tell me, like, give me some warning, like, prep me for that.
It started as half a joke. I was talking to Lori about, the homework I was doing to prepare for an upcoming episode of Two Sides of Five. There's an episode coming that's about options. And I was, just showing some modeling I was doing about why someone might find this interesting, and really trying to put, pen to paper. And she was like, wow, that looks pretty good. She's like, so it would only take this many minutes a day, and maybe we could fly business for one trip every year, business class. I'm like, yeah, that's a good way to look at it. She's like, oh, I would be totally on board with that. I was like, well, hold on now. Let's talk about the risk versus the reward. Let's have an honest conversation. But I was like, at the end of the day, we were like, yeah, that's kind of a fun way to look at it, because, we have proven that we are, maybe this sounds silly. I'll say that if it gives you any confidence, you're going to probably be mostly right most of the time about your budget and stuff. There's always going to be things you can't account for. We have absolutely found that to be true. But that doesn't mean there might not be times earlier on where you don't really know where the market's going to go 20 years out, right? Those curves we all look at and see Fire Sim or whatever we've joked about before. You don't know where you're going to end up. Maybe some point this becomes not a question, but for right now, it's like, well, yeah, maybe making a little money doing something I'm enjoying anyway, like, that sounds pretty cool. And so we are doing that now. We have started to, in a small way, haven't gone whole hog yet, but do some options trading on a strategy, the goal of which is to generate some extra money for different things. And that could turn into a lot of really positive things in ours and other people's lives. But, we'll see where that goes. Right now, it's like turning a hobby into something that's also lucrative. So
but I know you, and, like, a lot of times you'll take a kind of casual interest. You'll go really deep on it, right? And is that what this is? Like, is 50% of this just that, as opposed to, I mean, I know you don't need the income, but it's kind of like nice to have. And was that earmarked for travel, for example? Like, what did you leave out of the budget? I'm guessing is what I'm asking.
I would definitely say it started as half me just getting really interested in a topic and wanting to understand it better.
That's what I figured.
But the other half came from conversations that we had on the show that kind of really got my brain going about, kind of Karsten Jeska's, what his wage rate was on options earned by doing his trading strategy, right? A little bit of time, pretty good payout. And I was like, yeah, why don't I more seriously look at that to see if it's something I'm interested in? We're not finding so much that there's stuff we didn't budget for. It's more like there's some nice to have stuff that we're thinking about. Because, honestly, the genesis of it was we were planning our 20th anniversary trip. And, we decided to go to Peru. And we were looking at the flights. And I said, it's our 20th anniversary. It's not unreasonable, given the rates on this airline, to do business, like one way.
Right.
Like, why don't we fly business class there? Because it's actually it's not a big upcharge. We don't have to do it on the way back. It's much more on the way back for some stupid reason. Like, let's just do it one way. And Lori's like, I don't know. Like, we have our travel amount in the budget. I'm like, you know what? This is just a blip in the big budget over time. I said we should definitely do it. And so we decided to do it. And I got thinking, like, well, maybe there will be more things like that, and whether it's giving or what have you. And it's like, if there's a relatively low risk way to both enjoy a hobby and make some income, well, why don't I explore it?
It's funny because Laura and I, on the way back from a recent trip, we flew business. And
Nice.
it wasn't a huge upgrade. I don't want people thinking we're like living super large here, but it's what it reminds you. Once you level up, man, it's hard to step
no going
back. Like, oh, I like this. This is not really like flying anymore, you know? Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, and it's one of the criticisms I think of, you know, chubby fire, fat fire. If you're striving for a bigger number because you want to kind of level up this lifestyle, you're potential, unless your shovel is real big, you potentially signing yourself up for many more years of work, and you don't know what you're trading, you know, because it's like when you put a value to that time. I mean, if you're options trading and you're making $1,900 an hour, like Karsten is, which I think is what the effective hourly wage was, if you calculate it out based on his annual returns on that strategy. Geez, I mean, yeah, I'll trade a little time for that, you know, but if it's 20, 40 hours a week, you know, I don't know,
exactly
20, 30 hours a week, that's a different trade, or 60, you know, if you get to people at our age, you know, in management positions, or you're working a high stress job, it's even beyond the hours that you put into the office, you know, it's consuming beyond that. So.
Yeah, very true. So yeah, it's also another example of just, you can plan and prepare as much as you want, but you know, surprises and new interests are gonna bubble up, and it's something, you know, you've said to me before, right? Part of that freedom that you've bought is freedom to explore. Just try different things. You know, you open one door and there's 5 more possible doors on the other side. And I've been messing around with a number of, you know, kind of investing related topics, including options, for a few years now. And so it's just another thing that I got interested in that previously I didn't have the time. Even if I had the interest, I wasn't willing to take that time to learn yet another thing and explore it. And so I look forward to seeing for you guys what that translates to, because both of you have so many creative and other interests, even outside of travel, that I can't help but wondering, like, are your gears going already now? And are you starting to imagine some of that? Or like, where's your dreaming versus planning in the moment?
I've always been dreaming of creative acts like that. You know, I think Laura's the one who's more hesitant to do it, and she's still not quite there yet. I'm going to be honest. Yeah. She's very invested in certain aspects of her life right now, with like exercise and diet and things like that. And I see that taking a larger space in her post RE life. But for me, what I'm really looking forward to is this, not having to put pressure on a creative act to earn money. Because I can't tell you how many times I feel like I've had to pull a rabbit out of a hat to earn money. Every single month, it's like pulling rabbits out of the hat. It's like I got to come up with more creative. I mean, even this project, you know, like a thumbnail or what, you know, editing, whatever. I mean, yeah, it's a small lift, but the aggregate total of being a creative person and having to derive an income out of it is a lot of pressure, and it takes some of the fun out of it. You know, it's like, you know, they always tell you not to turn your hobby into a job, because then it's just a job. It's no longer fun. And you know, I can't say that having stepped away from the client work, man, I don't really miss that at all. And the stuff that I'm doing for the business now it's based on creativity, and it does require a creative lift, but it's a little different. And so I'm looking forward to exploring that side. It's like returning to fishing, you know, or taking photographs again and editing photographs. Like I'm so into that now, and because I don't need it to, you know, be a thumbnail for a YouTube video. I can just do it for the pure enjoyment of editing the photo, which sounds crazy. But
no, I totally get it.
Yeah.
Even though I don't get the same joy out of that act, I totally understand what you mean by that.
And all the time, like, I want to pick my guitar up again. I'm like, having just gone to this concert, I'm like, oh, I got to play that, you know, I got to learn that song again. I knew that song like 8 years ago, and now it's just the stuff that, you know, the guitar's just been collected dust for the past 8 years. You know, it's like, it's a shame, because that was a real stress reliever for me, and I just kind of left it because I just put all my effort into the business. So yeah, I'm looking forward to all that stuff, man, and also connecting with you guys and more travel and all the things. I got a huge list. Like I said, you know, my possibles futures list is always getting longer, and I'm ready to start ticking some of those off. Yeah.
I mean, I have to tell you, I understand Laura's perspective. I know no two cases are the same, but I mean, you know, and we've discussed on the show before that my FI date was a little over a year before I actually stopped my job. And I didn't find that I spent that much time until I got pretty close to the end, really starting to imagine having more detailed thoughts and documenting what I was planning to do next. All I knew was I was going to be moving, and then I would figure out the rest. And I had a few ideas in my head and some really easy things to check off, but the bigger stuff kind of evolved organically. And it just goes to show that there's no one way to do that. And I'm not surprised that you've put a good amount of thought into it already, and you have kind of a lot of these possibilities documented. I think it's really cool. I have no doubt Laura, while after she's done focusing in the area she's focusing now, and when she gets through what remains at work, she's going to do the same. And we all come to it in our own way, right?
Yeah, right on.
So, Eric, going back to your 60-40 model, we've spent, as we usually do on Two Sides of Fi, a good amount of energy on that 40%. But what about the 60% that's more on the nuts and bolts, the financial side? What's worth summarizing there? Is a Roth conversion strategy part of yours? Is taxable going to be your bridge to get you to, 59.5? Give us a sense of kind of where you are on all those things.
Yeah. So we always talk in ranges on this show. We're both in the chubby fire range, so I know that's a pretty big range, and it's probably getting higher than what we used to talk about before.
I think it is.
We said 2.5 to 5 million, I think, is what we said.
And
I think that's kind of trending further and further to the right there. But anyway, we're solidly in the chubby fire range. Laura and I have no debt. We own our own home. We paid it off right as we found the fire movement. Probably not the sort of optimal financial move, probably, but it allowed us to kind of super save. So that's how we looked at that decision. So now we'll be entering retirement without any kind of a mortgage here. We are looking at possibly relocating. So we're going to spend the next year or two maybe looking at where else we might move to. Probably keep this house. And so there's some financial implications of that. In terms of assets, we have a pre-tax taxable split of roughly 60-40.
Okay.
And so our taxable account is going to be our bridge, basically. Once the business stops generating income, we're probably going to use the taxable to manage our ACA, our health insurance strategy. That's kind of how we see using that. Asset allocation is what it was. It's been for maybe a year and a half, 2 years now. So it's basically 80% equities, 15% fixed income, and 5% cash. So we have been building that cash buffer. And we're probably going to use the business to fund that and dividends and things like that. So that's part of our kind of bucket strategy that we've built up there.
So you're going to keep it 80-20. You're not going to ramp down to 70-30. You're going to keep your moderately aggressive approach.
Yep. Yeah, I think so.
I've been rethinking 70-30 too.
Oh, is that where you're at still? Okay, I thought you were 80-15. No?
No, I'm 70-25-5.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Well, I don't know if now's a good time to move that or not, man. I'm going to see some rate cuts here pretty soon. I'm not sure I'd make any moves on that. Would you?
Yeah, no, I'm not.
Yeah, it's a changing environment, right? The changing rate environment, it's gonna force us to look at that a little bit differently and what cash is able to do for us now. The business is really a cash generating asset, right. So we're using that kind of as a buffer here. So I'm not pretending anyone should kind of mimic my strategy, but I'm thinking we're not going to have to draw on the portfolio for the foreseeable future. I think we're going to leave it where it's at right now. Can you think of anything else that I might have missed that people are going to be curious about?
So 60-40 means you have 60% retirement assets. Does that mean are Roth conversions a part of your strategy, or not while the business is still generating because it's not favorable? Yeah,
that's exactly right. And I will model it out. There's lots of new modeling tools that I'm kind of excited to dig into, like new retirement and other things. Just to look at what that might be, but yeah, no strategy here just yet. And we really have very little in Roth assets. So we just started accumulating that a couple years ago, and we realized we were our strategy was a little bit in error. We weren't doing the the Roth conversions. The backdoor, sorry. Yeah, and so we're kind of playing catch up there. We have no HSA. So yeah, I think that's about it.
Yeah, I mean, sounds pretty straightforward. Makes sense. Nuts and bolts, that's what they are. They're not meant to be something you have to agonize over too much. So you've said the business is a cash generating engine for the near term, but do you have plans for how that will change in terms of drawing on taxable? Are going to use a fixed withdrawal rate strategy, or going to use something more variable like a cape based strategy? What do you guys plan to do?
I'm copying you, man. I'm doing the cape based strategy.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's still working great for me. I'm still very happy with it.
I love it just because it's you check in and you see where you're at based on the current cape ratio, and all the reading that I've done basically suggests that that's pretty fail safe way of working your asset pool. Yeah.
Yep. Love that little monthly check in. I realized today that when I did my end of July financial wrap up, I didn't do it. So corrected that today. Doesn't change anything about how I live each day. It's just a matter of bookkeeping. And at the end of the year, I like to look at how that kind of went and where we went over and where we didn't. So nice. You'll see. Your world will continue. Sounds like much in the way that you're used to. Well, the business is still operating in whatever capacity it is. And then after that, well, we're going to have that much more to talk about.
Exactly, man. Yeah. Cool.
Awesome. Well, I am super happy for you guys. It's Cheers. Probably an opportunity to remind me that we should set up a group call or something with us and Lori and Laura and talk about this stuff, because we're not going to be in front of each other soon enough. So
yeah, no doubt.
We can compare notes.
It does feel a little funny talking about this. This is a goal that we reached together. And I feel arm in arm with Laura on this, and I'm just I couldn't be more happy that we've done it. And it was, for all the hand wringing that we did in 2022 and the long slide down there, man, we got it pretty close to the target date that we were looking at. So our projections weren't that far off,
They weren't. Now you got to take that question mark off 2024.
I know.
Next time when this video publishes, that better be on the beginning of it, 2024. I love that.
Yeah, man. Well, it's great. We're not actually going to change the name of the show. Two Sides of Fi is a reflection of our two attitudes,
perspectives,
and approaches and perspectives,
and paths, and all that.
I think everyone would say we're probably very similar, more similar than different at this point. But I'm glad to have reached the other side, man.
I am glad to have you on the other side. I'll show you the secret handshake off camera, and then you'll be prepared.
All right, man. Does it have anything to do with like the metal sign or no?
It's definitely got something to do with it. Yeah, I learned it from Ronnie James Dio. Rest in peace.
All right, man.
All right, man. Good Congratulations to you guys.
Yeah, thanks. Cheers.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Cheers, man.
Well, hey, man. Cheers. Congratulations to you guys.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Appreciate all your help along the way.
Hey, vice and same.
How sweet
that
it
ain't
is.
bad. Cool.